Hello, welcome back to the Harmony Inspired Health Podcast. Today, we're unpacking a truth bomb that might just change the trajectory of your year going into the new year, 2026, and it might even just change your whole life. And the truth bomb is that your purpose or your Dharma isn't your job. It's not your business name. It's not your Instagram bio. It is your soul in motion, how you choose to live, serve, and show up. This episode is for high-achieving women who've ticked all the boxes, followed all the rules, and still feels off. Let's stop chasing alignment like it's something outside of us and start embodying the wholeness that already lives within. Let's start by clearing the air. Purpose, or the Sanskrit word Dharma, does not equal career. It's not that simple. In Vedic philosophy, Dharma means that which upholds. It's the cosmic truth, your unique role in the greater harmony of existence, not just your job or your career. It's the energetic frequency of your soul expressed through action, not just a job description. Dharma means cosmic duty or soul-aligned purpose. We also have the terminology Svadharma, which is one's own personal Dharma, and Adharma, which is against truth. Your Dharma or your purpose might be expressed through your job, but it is not limited to it. And I think in today's culture, especially in the West, I mean, one of the first questions when you meet someone is, oh, okay, so like, what do you do? It's like, it kind of, you're judging and defining that person by what they do in a few seconds. And I know it's a nice icebreaker and all, but sometimes we can form too harsh a judgments, or not even harsh, but judgments about that person just because the career that they're in. And we think that it relates to who they are on that soul level, but it doesn't. You could be living your Dharma as a CEO, a mother, a dancer, a barista, or an Ayurvedic healer, but it's less about what you do and more about how you do it with devotion, integrity, and presence. Dharma is your why and your way, not just your what. So not just your what you do, it's why you do it and the way in which you deliver it. So let's be a little bit raw and honest, because I love doing that on the podcast with you guys. The personal development space loves to hustlefy Dharma or purpose. We've turned it into a brand, a six-figure tagline, a content pillar. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Ego goals and Dharma, or your Dharmic path, they often look similar on paper, but they will feel wildly different in the body. So let's look at what ego goals may feel like or look like. So these goals are usually set to impress others, to chase validation. They feel urgent. They often are accumulated because of the fear of missing out. And they're really rooted in scarcity. Whereas when you're in alignment with your Dharmic path, it feels really grounded. It nourishes you first. It also uplifts others and aligns with your nature, your natural constitution, your prakriti. And it also feels really sustainable. It doesn't feel like you're constantly flogging yourself, because that's not in alignment with Dharma. So for example, you might launch a business because everyone says you should. You had this idea of a way that you could make a lot of money, but it doesn't align to you. Or you could launch a business because the deepest part of you feels called to serve in that way. So you get the same outcome. You launch that same business, but it definitely has a different energetic signature. And that is the difference between Dharma and just doing something like a job for the sake of it. So you want to ask yourself, is this coming from soul or performance? And like I said, it doesn't just have to be a job. It could be an athletic ability, or it could be, even the way you parent. Like, this comes into all parts of your life. So let's dive into the idea of Dharma through the ancient lens of Ayurveda and Vedic psychology, because I love geeking out on that. Because when we do, this is where things start to truly shift, where purpose is no longer performance and success isn't about how well you've played the game, but whether you're even playing the right one. So you've heard me speak about Prakriti, your natural constitution, your Ayurvedic constitution or your dosha. This is your Dharmic map, but so many people don't realize this and they're constantly like fighting against their innate nature. In Ayurveda, we don't ask, what's your job? We ask, who are you in nature? Your Prakriti is your elemental blueprint. It's the unique doshic balance. And you can be a combination of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And this combination was imprinted on you at conception. So it really is your true north. When you're aligned with your Prakriti, you're walking your Dharma, not just in your work, but in how you eat, sleep, speak, parent, create, relate. And if you can imagine working with your natural constitution, then you're going to be in so much more alignment with your Dharma because you're living from your core essence. But when you operate from Vikriti, meaning imbalance, you start to make decisions based on survival, not soul. You chase ego desires that feel good in the moment, but drain you long term. Hey, I've been victim to this. I have said yes to so many different things that I thought, oh, that sounds really cool. Like that person's doing it and, they're like being so successful doing it. It looks amazing. And then I go to do it and it just doesn't feel in alignment with me because I haven't really checked in with my own unique constitution. It's like when you say yes, when your body is screaming no, but you do it anyway, just for the fear of missing out, or because what if I don't try, then I won't actually know, even though deep down I already know it's not the right thing. And guys, we learn from these lessons. But when we're looking at it from this perspective, you build things that look successful on paper, but it just feels like sand slipping through your fingers because it wasn't meant for you. So let's break it down further by looking at the individual doshas, the constitutions, and seeing how the different dharmic imprint can be radiated through those constitutions. So a natural Vata constitution, they're the inspired creator. When Vata is balanced, she is imaginative, intuitive. She's a great visionary. Her Dharma is often connected to ideation, movement, innovation, and healing and creativity. But when out of balance, she can become really scattered, ungrounded, and anxious, starting a million different things, but completing nothing. She makes mistakes through nervous excitement, and she can often feel like this nervous excitement, or because she's like, oh, look at all the different things I can do, thinks that is sometimes alignment when actually it's not. And so if your nervous system is fried, your intuition will not be heard so loudly, but your anxiety will be, because we are out of balance. So we're not listening to that deep, intuitive inner knowing. We're listening to that anxiety and that fear of missing out and the many ideas that we have. So we have to be really mindful that if we're more of a Vata constitution, how can we keep this in balance? How can we align with our natural Prakriti, which is that creative side? It is that social side. They're beautiful at being able to connect with other people. But how can we keep that in alignment and balance? Because Dharma is all about showing up in the right way. Now, if you're more of a Pitta constitution, these are the empowered leaders. A balanced Pitta person is really driven, they're focused, they're transformational, and Dharma flows through leadership, strategy, and purpose-driven action. But when they're out of balance, Pitta can become really controlling, perfectionists, and they can become really rigid. She often chases achievement as a proof of worth. And these Pizza women, they need to remember, just because you can do it all doesn't mean it's dharmic. Because if you're doing it for the wrong reason, it's not in dharmic alignment. Now, when we look at the Kapha constitution, she's the grounded healer. Balanced Kapha is nurturing, stable, and really compassionate. Her Dharma might show up through caregiving, community building, or healing through presence. But imbalanced Kapha can become stuck in inertia, cling to the known, and have a great resistant over change. So for these women, or if this is resonating, and if you've over nurtured others at the cost of your own becoming, you may be blocking your Dharma with devotion. So think about that. Now, I want to shift gears a little bit here into where Vedic psychology fits in, because it can really offer a profound clarity. So in the Sankhya philosophy, which is one of Ayurveda's sister philosophies, your mind isn't just a single entity. It's a collection of faculties. We have 7 different layers of consciousness, which I discuss in my book, and Ayurveda and the Alchemy of Her, and how you can activate and work from those high levels of consciousness, because this will ensure you're on the Dharmic path and you're making those right decisions for you. But just looking at a few of those faculties now, when I speak of the chitta mind, that's your consciousness. It's the storehouse of impressions, like your samskaras. The buddhi mind is your inner wisdom. It's the discerning intelligence where you want to make your decisions from. The ahamkara, which is your ego, it is the mind that helps, or kind of it forces you to have an identity. It's the I maker. And a lot of our decisions, when we're not in tune with our own unique constitution, when we're not on our in flow with Dharma, we're making decisions more so from our ahamkara, because we're so connected and linked to the identity that we have created for ourselves. For instance, I become a nurse when I was 20, I believe. I graduated. Well, I went to uni when I was 17. Started going to uni to become a nurse when I was 17. So really my whole adult life, it's all I knew. And it was such an identity for me. And so when I shifted careers, it took a really big hit to my hamkara, my ego, because I was still clinging on to that identity. Now I am still a registered nurse and I still do some nursing things to keep my registration going. But I don't speak about it that often. Like, I don't feel like I need it in order to have that as my identity. And so we can it took word vomit. It took me, what I'm trying to say is it took me so many more years to align with my dharmic path, because I don't believe my dharmic path was in alignment when I was nursing. It may have been at the start because it's all part of my story and my journey, and our dharmic path will change as we grow. But I wasn't supposed to stay there. And I stayed there for much longer in the emergency department than I was supposed to. And that was because my hamkara, my ego, was telling me to stay because that was all I knew and that was who I was. So moving on to our manas, this is your processing mind, the part that takes in sensory data and reacts. As I mentioned, most people are living life from their ahamkara, their ego identity. And I do want to make it clear that ahamkara, or the ego, isn't bad. It is actually necessary in this human form of life that we're living in. But if the ahamkara is in the driver's seat, your life becomes one long strategy to protect a false self. But, or I should say, if buddhi, which is our higher intellect, is clouded by trauma, conditioning, comparison, or just the hustle culture that we're in, you mistake ego-driven goals for your dharma. You confuse status with purpose, busyness with value, perfection with safety. But when buddhi is clear, that higher intellect is clear, you can discern what is true over what is simply expected. And once I started to learn about Ayurvedic psychology and actually start to apply it, I knew that I could no longer stay in that role because I was destined, my Dharmic path was destined for something else. And when I started to understand that and activate through the buddhi, the higher intellect, I stopped asking, what should I do? Like, what should I do about this situation that I'm in? Like rocking up to a job that I'm not passionate about, that I don't feel like I'm giving the best of me, that I don't feel a lot of value in for me. And I'm not saying that it could, because it is one of the most valuable jobs like ever. But for me, I didn't feel like I was giving the best of me to the world. And so instead of saying, like, what should I do? I asked, what feels integrity and what feels inherently right, even if it's a little bit unpopular or slower or quieter, or people won't understand why I'm leaving a government job to pursue a career that's almost, I mean, it's still in health, but, opposite ends of the spectrum of health. I had to ask, like, what are my values here? And if I didn't have such a deep association with my ahamkara, my identity, then what would I do? And from that place, I could make the right decisions. Now, I mentioned samskaras before, and I've done a whole podcast episode on samskaras. They are the energetic imprints left on your chitta mind. They are formed by past experiences, beliefs, and even ancestral lineage. So each time you act out of alignment with your Dharma, you deepen that samskara. So my samskaras in my chitta mind, my subconscious mind, were deepening every time I was going against my truth, which means every time I was showing up into a role, showing up to a job that I knew wasn't part of my Dharmic path anymore. Like I said, it originally definitely was, but the difference is realizing it and moving through it or staying stuck. And each time you override your body's wisdom to meet someone's expectations or someone else's expectations, you're not just burning yourself out, you're repeating a karmic loop. Now, honestly, I felt like I did stay in that job for a long time because it made my grandparents proud. And I loved my grandparents. I really, really did. I was so close to my grandma. Like, she was my soul connection. I loved her so much, and my granddad. But it wasn't until they passed away that I actually transitioned into the career that I'm in now, that I 100% truly love and know that I'm on my Dharmic path. And everything happens for a reason, people will say. I feel like the reason that I took so long wasn't because it was my Dharmic path, but I feel like that reason was because I had lessons to learn and I was repeating a karmic loop. And so the truth that I figured out was Dharma actually dissolves samskaras. When you act from your true nature, you rewrite your energetic patterning. And I felt like I really did this when I made that shift. You don't need to fix everything before you walk your purpose. You walk your purpose to become whole again. Now, for the modern woman, which is all of the wonderful women listening to this, we are entering 2026. So as we enter 2026, I want you to remember that you are not here just to fit in. You are here to remember who you truly are. You don't need another fancy planner. You probably need to pause and to ask yourself some serious questions. You don't need a fancy title. You just need to listen to your truth. So I want you to ask yourself, maybe even pause this, write these questions down. The first question I want you to ask yourself is, am I leading from prakriti, from my innate natural constitution, or am I reacting from vikriti, an imbalance? Is this choice guided by buddhi, my higher intellect, or is it being manipulated by ahamkara, my ego, my sense of identity, my sense of I-ness? Am I moving closer to my dharma or performing for someone else's validation? So for your sacred action steps that I would love for you to take as you enter 2026, I want you to write a list titled Things I Do When I Forget Who I Am. Now, these might be things that are on autopilot, that you're just doing because that's who you quote unquote are, or that's who people expect you to be. So what things are you doing when you forget who you are? And then I want you to write a second list titled Things I Do When I Remember My Truth. And the way that you know you are doing these things in your truth, it feels really expansive. It feels on purpose. You feel in flow. Time just sort of melts away. And then I want you to choose one action from the second list and commit to doing it every day for the next 40 days. This is your Dharma sadhana, your spiritual practice of returning to self every day. So you have some things to work on throughout the end of 2025, merging into 2026, so that 2026, you can truly step into your higher self. You can truly live in alignment with your Dharmic path. And that will change the trajectory of your whole life. I promise you that. I honestly promise you that. It has for me, it has for many of my clients and students. And if you want to learn more about how you can step into your higher self, be this version of you that is so full of passion and love for every day, then I encourage you to go and grab a copy of my book, Ayurveda and the Alchemy of Her, because we cover all of the pillars of health alchemy, like how to optimize our health from a physical, mental, spiritual, emotional and dharmic standpoint, so that we are ready to really embody our higher self. And then I look at the Ayurvedic psychology lens. So this is in the pillar of the empowered mind paradigm. How can those 7 layers of consciousness be programmed so that we can activate from our higher level of consciousness and make these discerning choices from our buddhi mind? And then the final pillar, Dharmic impact. Imagine the impact you can make in your life, in your children's life, in your family's, colleagues, friends' life, if you were truly in alignment with your Dharma. Just imagine the possibilities that lay ahead of you. That is all written in my book, Ayurveda and the Alchemy of Her. So grab yourself a copy, grab your friend a copy, your sister a copy, because every woman needs to know this. And if you are interested in learning more about Ayurveda on a really deep level, maybe it's your Dharma, maybe it's your calling to embody this practice so you can support others as an Ayurveda holistic health consultant or even an Ayurvedic practitioner, then check out our programs at ayurvedaalchemist.com.au. We have a wonderful school with beautiful faculty, amazing community that are learning all of this together so that we can really step into our Dharma as Ayurvedic practitioners. I hope that this has resonated with you. If it has, I would love for you so much to do me a small favor. And right now, if you're on your phone, go into Spotify or Apple iTunes, wherever you're listening, and click 5 stars and give us a little review, because it means the world to me. And it helps this information get to all of the other amazing women out there. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. Namaste.